So tonight I'm going to show you guys how I do my circle skirts. This one's actually a high-low, but we're going to hem the bottom of it. I'm going to use my cover stitch, but if you don't have a cover stitch, you can use your serger. Serge all the way around your circle, and then you can just add it to your sewing machine. Use your double needle and then go over top of it. I have a cover stitch, luckily enough, so I will show you on there. It's almost the same basically, but you just kind of skip that first step of serging. So I take my fabric, I start on an edge. So if your circle is on the outside, and then you have another circle on the inside for your attaching it to your body, you can see where your grain lines are. So that would mean that if I were to look at this side and this side would be my edges. So I follow those out, and I just do that in case I have a rocky start. It's much easier to fix the mistake and then have it not look awful if it was on the side as opposed to the front or the back. So that's the only reason why I do that. So I just take it and I fold it over. I fold it over only about a ½ inch, not even this much. Here. So then I take it and I put it in to my machine, and I just show you here how I set it. I line up my edge with the side of my foot, and then you can see underneath that I just even this is a little too far over for my liking. That's a little better. So see, you can see holding it up how far it is. So then I just, in my mind, this is what I'm imagining. My left needle here and my center needle are both threaded, and I don't have anything in my right needle. So in order for my cover stitch to put a serging, like the serging on the bottom, kind of, I need to have nothing to trim off on the bottom, which means that this needle has to sit on the edge of this fabric underneath. So in my head, I'm just imagining that when I'm sewing. If you cover stitch, you still kind of have to think about that, even if you're using a serger and a sewing machine, because you don't want a ton of extra fabric on the other side. You want it to sit pretty much so that there's nothing like wavy underneath, which will be easier to explain when I'm done sewing. So here's how I do a round edge. I start and I stop, and I maneuver a bit. And sometimes that's all you can do, is just start and stop and make sure everything's lined up, and that's kind of what you have to do, at least to begin with, to get used to it. Now, after you've gotten used to it, this is kind of how I do it. I use my fingers underneath and I sit it in the palm of my hand, almost, to kind of like use this finger to feel and make sure of where the edge of the fabric is. And then I just kind of, in my palm of my hand, I just maneuver it so that my hand's almost working like the bias tape things that you can add onto your sewing machine, like it only allows a certain width of fabric to come in. It's hard to explain, and it takes practice to do, but that way I don't have to stop to do the entire circle skirt. So while my hand is doing that, this hand is just fixing fabric. And so then if I get down to the point where I've got a lot of bunched up fabric here, I need to make it straight, I just, as I'm sewing with this hand, this hand is just maneuvering, and all while I am just feeling that the fabric's going in the right way. And it can be intimidating to serge or to stitch on a curve, but don't think about the curve. So from here, it doesn't look like I'm sewing it on a curve at all, does it? It looks straight because you're only seeing this much. So when you're doing the same thing, only look at that much. Don't think about the curve. The curve's not there if you don't let it be there. Just keep it all in line. If you get to a spot where there's a bit more of a curve, just go a little slower. Go a little slower, maneuver it more often, fix it more often. If it's starting to roll, stop. Fix your fabric. It's not a race. There's nothing, like no one's timing you. Just slowly, because eventually you will get faster. But while you're getting the hang and feel of it, so, see, I'll fix it. I just try and keep, it's very hard to do this with the camera in the way. Just try and keep it lined up. The fabric, or the to my original stitch here. I just trim both, and then I go over top about a ½ inch, and then I lift my machine, I pull it out. So then these two actually just pull out for me, or they should if they weren't tangled in the back. And then along the back I'll have 3 stitches, and these 3 stitches I tie knots into. 2 to 3, and then I trim off the extras, and then that's just so it doesn't come loose. So now you will see, this is my stitch line. It's of course not going to be perfect. If you find spots where, let's say, like this is good, there's a very small amount of overage, but say you get a spot like this, where just, there's a lot there. So I just take my fabric scissors carefully, because you don't want to snip the fabric underneath, and I just almost fold that fabric upwards with the scissors so that I don't cut it, and that's it. I'll just take it down like that, and so now it's where I want it to be. Just hard to see. like that. And so then again, the other side. So that flip is about a 1/2 inch or so. And yeah, that's it. All the way around I just did that. And like I said, if you're not imagining it as a curve and you're just going with the curve, like you're sewing it and you're just feeling the fabric go with it, it's not going to be like a curve. Just worry about this much at a time and don't think about all the rest of this, because every curve you can make flat and just follow it through. And then slowly, without even realizing it, you're going to have a curve. Because here's my curve here. I got a curve, but I didn't sew on a curve. I just made the fabric go straight, which sounds crazy, but that's the way it is. So here's the finished circle skirt. It's big because it's a big size. It's a 5T. And then this side's shorter because it's a high-low. So here's what it'll look like attached. And yeah, that's it. It's easy.